In today's episode of the Positive Worth podcast, I continue my Interesting People I Know series with Stephanie Abbott. Stephanie is an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, an author, and the founder of Abbott Solutions, where she serves as both president and chief experience officer. On top of being a mom and a wife, and so many other things, she also is a cancer survivor. I'm so excited for you to hear more about her journey as we go through today's episode. I'm James Oliver, your host. And today, you've joined me on my journey of holistic learning, where I'm talking to people about the 5 F's in their life: field, finance, family, fitness, and faith. Like, share, and subscribe to help the algorithm, and be sure to check out our Patreon and support us there by searching for Positive Worth. And now, on to today's episode.
My name is Stephanie Abbott, and I am the President and Chief Experience Officer of Abbott Solutions. I am a retired, I like to say this, a retired healthcare executive turned consultant. Really, what I'm trying to do is create solutions for healthcare to improve their employee and their patient experience. In 2020, I received some interesting news that I had never expected to receive, and I became a patient. I was able to go through the healthcare system wearing a different hat than most patients. As a seasoned healthcare executive, I understand why we do what we do in healthcare operations, but now this is how it felt as a patient actually going through the system. I am a subject matter expert, specifically in my field of patient experience and employee experience. I know how to drive improvement. But I did not realize the knowledge gap that existed in myself until I became a patient. And it's just an incredible experience to go through. You know, I once said that cancer was a blessing, and oh man, did I get blown up for that on my LinkedIn. But I was like, for me, it provided a different perspective. And so although I love healthcare and I loved leading healthcare organizations, being a consultant in my own company will help me be able to make a difference for more people on a much larger scale than the working with only one organization. So I'm excited to be brand new on this journey, and we'll see where the Lord takes me from here.
So prior to Abbott Solutions, then, what was your title? Where did you work? How did you even get into that?
Well, I have been on this journey now in healthcare since I believe I started healthcare in 2009. And that was where the government first started trying to improve quality in healthcare. And that's when they came out with HCAHPS, which is the survey that measures hospitals' quality, specifically in patient experience. I have worked for several wonderful organizations. My most recent role, I was the Chief Experience Officer for Adventist Health.
Okay. Which is where our paths crossed a little bit, not directly, but we were there around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
When did you leave?
When did I leave? Technically, my last day was April 1st of 2023. So it has been a full year.
That's funny. For all the conversations that we have had, I didn't realize that your last day there was literally my last day with my VP position. Funny how the universe does things.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting.
So you left your last role though, and I mean, I'm sure you had other boy, words are hard this morning. You left your last role, and I'm sure that you had other options, but you chose to go out on your own. What informed that decision?
I was always going to start my own company, but ideally it was going to be a side hustle for me. My husband has big aspirations as far as what he wants in a boat. And so I was like, if I start my own company, the company, the side hustle, can help pay for the boat. I never thought this would be full time starting now. But I felt like God kept pushing me into a direction that I just didn't think I could fail at it. And I'm like, why is God giving me all these ideas in my head and introducing me to the right people, putting the right things, people, place, just resources in the path if he was going to let me fail at this? So with lots of prayer, blood, sweat, tears, all that fun stuff, I was like, you know what? Let's just do this. And so now it is full time for me.
The other entrepreneurs that I've spoken with so far, faith has been the last F that I have talked about, but you have brought up God several times already. And I think I'd like to just dive right into that faith aspect and say, what is it about faith that has driven you to do what you've done and has driven you to do what you're doing, more specifically than God just put something in your path?
I grew up in a Christian Baptist home. I went to Christian school from first to 12th grade, and I owe everything to my grandmother and my father, who really made those Christian roots strong. I feel that every time I've been faced with different decisions, my faith has helped guide me along that, and what I also call my life board of directors, but we can get through that too. This last journey that I went through back in 2020, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. I had just had a baby, my son, and I had just moved to California. So I was faced with this, what on earth is going on, right? I got mad at God. I was like, what are you doing? You just moved me 2,300 miles from Florida to California to kill me here? Like, I have no support system here. And it was time after time after time again, God kept showing me basically like signs to say, shut up and watch, which is kind of hard, right? But right when I had started my last role, my boss, who was a phenomenal leader to work with, ended up giving me a journal that is etched with Jeremiah 29:11. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And throughout my tenure at that organization and throughout my cancer journey, I kept seeing this verse over and over again. And then that kind of helped too as I created my company is, I'm not going to fail at this. God has a bigger purpose for me going through cancer, going through my treatment, being a mom, being a healthcare executive, and now a business owner. His plans are much bigger than what I had ever envisioned for myself. So I'm going to do it.
You mentioned this life board of directors. What's that?
This is just funny. I've talked about this many times throughout my career, and I actually spoke about this at a conference, and a lady came up to me after, and she goes, "Do you have a job description for this?" I'm like, "No, I don't. It's just something I kind of came up with." So many organizations have board of directors that help navigate different decisions for the organization to move them forward, to align with their mission, vision, values for the future. So I was sitting there and I thought, I should have this for my life. So as I started to go through my healthcare career back in 2009, I decided to recruit people that I had met along the way that had an impact in either my career or my life. And those people, I would solicit information for whether I didn't understand something or it was like a new concept for me and I wanted to know a little bit more about it. Even big life decisions. I remember when I made the decision to leave an amazing company that I worked for with a great job, and I was going to move cross state and actually take a little bit lesser of a position. I was like, I don't know. And I called a member of my board of directors and said, what do you think about this? And it was, these seasoned executives in many different spaces that have just molded me into the person that I am. And I always have someone to call that can give me another perspective instead of me just being, narrow focused in my own little world, to be able to understand and see the world a little bit differently.
Yeah. Dave Ramsey talks about this concept when people begin building wealth. And he says, especially people who stumble into wealth through inheritance or through a lottery, or they become a pro athlete and are making millions of dollars, all of a sudden, he says, you have to get people in your corner. Yep. And you have to have, I don't remember what he calls it. It's not life board of directors, but it's very much that same concept of, frankly, you're either not smart enough or you can't be trusted to make all the decisions of your life on your own as well as you could if someone else were in your corner helping you.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see your perspective on that. Did someone role model that for you?
No, so I had actually already come up with that on my own, but to kind of talk about a little bit about exactly what you just said, I remember sitting across a boardroom table with a CEO of a hospital, and we were talking and game planning about where we were going next in an organization. And I'm like, well, we should do this, and we're going to do this, and blah, blah. And he's like, hold on, Stephanie. He's like, you can't be good at everything. And I said, well, yes, I can. Like, I am like that personality that says, oh, you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it, or I'll figure out a way to do it. Don't tell me no. And I'm like, no, we can be the best at everything. And he's like, let's talk about this, you know? And so we started to walk through. It's like, no, you can't be the best at everything, but you can connect with people who are the best in that specific field, and you go from there. The chairman of my board of directors, who has really helped me be who I am today, once told me, he's like, your job, because I was the region director and he was the president, the CEO, he had a vice president role of different service lines for the corporate organization. He said, your job is to be a mile deep and an inch wide. My job as the president of the organization was to be a mile long and an inch deep.
Interesting.
So you think about that in your life. Who can you consult with that is that mile deep and only an inch and wide? So that's how I perceive things and use my board of directors to help me along my path.
I can't help but wonder, how are you supposed to apply that as an entrepreneur where sure, you have your board of directors that are not for your company, but don't you kind of have to be a mile wide and a mile deep? What are you finding?
You saw that I laughed at that when you said that, right?
Yeah.
I'm just learning how to be a president of my own company. And when you're only a team of one, you're the market person, you're the operations person, you're also your executive assistant. Like, there's nobody else. And that's super hard. I'm very, one of the things I had to learn in my career was how to delegate, because I like to control and I like to do everything myself, because then that's how I get stuff done. But as the higher I went, I had to rely on other people to make their own decisions and learn. And hopefully we could come together, or I could provide enough clarity to get the results or the outcome that I was specifically looking for. I am a perfectionist. And I think too, going through cancer has rewired my brain a little bit differently, that I'm even a more exasperated perfectionist. And as the president of my own organization, I have to cut that down, and I have to tell myself, enough's enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I've also created a cube. What's a cube? I don't know, some little thing that says, okay, what has to be done right now? What's not important? What is important but doesn't have to be done now, right? So it's like I try to think about things like that. Otherwise, I tend to gravitate to the areas that I want to do. I love design. I'm like, I should have probably been a designer, right? And so now, Canva, my favorite app ever. I love to go in Canva and start playing and making social media pieces and all that. I'll spend hours doing that because it makes me happy. That's my creative side. I like Excel too, which I'm a data junkie, so the Excel spreadsheet really makes me fascinated. But there's a lot of other tasks that I don't want to do that. I don't want to balance my checkbook. I don't want to get stuff ready for my tax accountant. But it's got to be done.
I've found that there are some similarities there, where I was a design major for my bachelor's, business emphasis, but design major. And from there, I became a self-taught Excel nerd. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned in being an entrepreneur, especially, is that the less I have to do something, the more excited I am about doing it. And so on the flip side, it's like, yes, I can spend hours and hours creating a spreadsheet. I made this whole spreadsheet about the S&P 500. The short lesson is invest. But I've spent very little time working on my taxes. And I actually nerd out over taxes. I think paying taxes is not cool.
Yeah.
but I think the like concept of taxes is fascinating right up until the point I have to fill out the tax forms, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. You have also, segueing a little here, because we talked a bit about faith, got on a wonderful tangent that is lots of fun. And at the beginning, and then again just recently, you started talking more about the idea of your health and how cancer has impacted you. Um, Talk to us a little bit more about how this whole concept of fitness has impacted what you've done and what you are doing.
Oh man, I'm really going to have to be honest about this one. And I'd like to say, oh, everything is awesome, but it most definitely is not in that fitness space. I always cared about being healthy, and I used to love to work out when I was in my 20s. Now, being a mom of two young children, owning my own company or a healthcare executive wherever I was in that field, and now also a patient and taking care of elderly parents, right? And trying to be there for them now that they're only 5 miles away. It's hard. It's really hard to make fitness number one, and I'm not good at it whatsoever. I'm definitely starting to turn more into a hippie, and I've learned a lot more about essential oils and herbs and things. And I have a very close friend who has trained with a world renowned physician in herbs. And she has put together different herbs and things for me and showed me different things to do on a more natural perspective. And I've been really trying to focus on that. And honestly, I feel that that's how I've gotten through part of healing from my cancer journey is looking at the natural things that God has given us and not always taking the quick, easy fixes for things. And I think there has to be a balance, right? So by no means am I saying stop healthcare and don't take the prescribed medication. I'm not saying that at all. I'm looking for a healthy balance, and that's where I've found. One of the things that I did realize this week, which was kind of like one of those, V8 moments where you want to slap yourself in the head. And I feel like it's just another thing that God's putting in my mind. My dad got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer last week.
Yeah.
And the past 2 weeks, we've known something's wrong. And we've been going through it. And it's a whole different perspective. And there's a part of me that's like, okay, guess God wants me to write another book. That's the funny side of it, right? The joke with that. But it's really hard to see your parents, your dad. Like, my dad's a Marine, my dad's tough. So to see him going through this, it's hard. What I learned this week, though, was last Thursday I had a checkup with my oncologist. And I'm on a oral chemotherapy that I have to take for 2 years. And that chemotherapy does wonders for, it's like a Pac-Man. It eats the rest of any remaining cancer cells in my body, but it has many side effects. And over the past 2 weeks that I've been trying to be there for my dad and my mom, I haven't been taking care of myself. I usually drink a gallon of water a day, and that's not occurring. I think when I went to go see the doctor, I maybe drank half a bottle of water. It's like your body almost goes into shutdown mode because you don't feel like eating, you don't feel like drinking. That's playing in your mental mentality, like when something's going on with your family. And the doctor, they did labs and they looked at my lab results and said, something's going on with your kidneys. I said, what do you mean something's going on with my kidneys? And they said, your kidney function is not good. It's concerning. They're like, how much water are you drinking? And I said, well, usually I'm drinking about a gallon of water a day. Right now, I'm totally not. Like, my fingers are pruny. And I was like, I know I'm dehydrated. And she's like, okay, let's chalk these lab results up to you being dehydrated, and we're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to retest your labs in a month. And if your kidney function is not good, like we're going to have to tackle that obstacle. And I'm like, So as I was driving home, I was sitting there thinking, you know what? You always have time until you don't. You have time to get healthy. You have time to visit with your grandparents. You have time to take your kid fishing until you don't. And I thought that with my health is, you know what? I have time to do the dishes at night. I have time to work out for 20 minutes. I have time to throw that laundry thing in. I've got time to work out. I've got time to take my vitamins. I've got time to drink water. I have to put my health as a priority. And if I don't, my body's going to say, okay, well, I'm going to fail you here. So stop failing me. That was a lesson I learned this week.
Wow. That's a lot.
Sorry.
That is so much going on. And I can just see how real and in the moment all of this is. If you take a little bit of a step back from it and look to 2 years ago versus today, how do you feel like your life is different with how you're able to approach your fitness, your overall health as an entrepreneur versus as an employee?
I, I don't even know how to answer that really. It's like I have this mentality of it is what it is. It's kind of a dangerous space to be in, but it's actually a really great positive space to be in too, because I don't sweat the small stuff, which prior to cancer PC, I I did. And now I just don't. But I think also I get back into that mentality of I'm in my 30s, I am, cancer free, never had any health issues. And now it's like, no, I'm 40. I've been through cancer, but actually my body thinks it's 60 because now I'm in menopause since we took out my ovaries. So I have to be worried about bone health. And in 2 years, I might be have a osteoporosis. Like they're telling me these are all possible things. And
Wow.
I need to start making this a priority. And if I don't, my body's going to make it a priority for me.
Do you feel like, um, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but do you feel like you will be able to better prioritize your health as an entrepreneur? Or is there ever a point where you would consider taking a job because that would be better for your health?
Definitely not. I think being an entrepreneur, you have much more control of your schedule, right? So I think yesterday I ended up going to be with my dad in the morning. I didn't worry that from 9 to 11 o'clock I was with him. I was took him to radiation. Nobody was going to be saying, where are you? Why did you miss this meeting? Those different things. But then it was 6:30, 7 o'clock at night that I'm shooting off emails, right? So there's this balance that you have for yourself that yes, you've got control over your schedule, but yet you're the only one that's going to get it done, right? These tasks still have to be done, whether it's 11 o'clock at night or it's 5 o'clock in the morning. They have to get done. Mm-hmm. I myself need to build out time in my schedule to work out regularly. And I've already thought in my head how I'm going to make that happen in the new school year. Maybe I might be able to start here in 2 weeks when my kids start a different routine from school ending. But I think that will really help me. But I have to work out in the morning. Like I am a morning person. I am not a night person. So come like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, like I'm tired. You want me to work out? That is definitely not happening then. I'm ready for a glass of wine by then.
Yeah. You mentioned being a morning person, working out in the morning. I generally like any time of day to work out. It's just when can I make it to the gym and feel like I have time to actually exercise. The funny thing is you're reflecting on this as I'm thinking about all of the crossovers that I see where I'm not a morning or a night person. I'm an awake person, and I like to maximize the number of hours that I'm awake. The problem is that means I get to nighttime, and I'll maximize on the nighttime, and then I won't wake up early enough in the morning, which, if I'm honest, I would prefer to work out in the morning. I feel better for the rest of the day, and I think it's better to not go to bed after having just lifted or gone running or something. Yeah, I envy people who can just definitively say I am a morning person. I wish that I just wanted to go to bed at night. You have mentioned, it's really cool how you're doing all these segues for me, by the way,
Hey.
because you have transitioned, as we were talking about fitness here, to mentioning things about family, mentioning how you can prioritize that time with your father. You're looking at resetting some of your schedule based off of when your kids are going to school. Talked about the husband's boat being one of the goals with a side hustle. What would you say about how family has influenced your decisions to do what you've done previously and do what you're doing now?
I think it's all about your partner. I have been blessed to marry the man of my dreams. I say that it took me a long time to find him, and God put the perfect man in my life for me. We have done what we needed to we call it building an empire, right? Build this empire of ours, and we have moved. I think we've had like 11 places and lived in 6 different states, but a couple states multiple times, but moved. And we just build things together. And, like, fortunately, he's incredibly supportive. I thought about going through my cancer journey, and there was times, I mean, I had no hair, no eyelashes, my skin's all blotchy. I felt like I looked like a iguana, right? My skin was so just dry, had tubes coming out of me, and he's draining my tubes of just body fluid coming out. And I remember sitting there looking at him, and he didn't skip a beat. He could have
Hmm.
cared less. And
Wow.
I'm like, man, I am a very lucky woman to have a man that just loves me, on the inside, not just the outside. And thankfully for him, not only was I supported during my cancer journey, but he's got my back in this business too. He can see the future. I think there's a time limit, right? Like, it's like we've got to replace salaries of a corporate role or a healthcare executive's role. I do have a runway, but I know I'm not going to fail at this. So here we go.
Nice. Well, it's like you are just reading my mind because you mentioned the runway. And so, once again, building this beautiful segue, there is the question then of the final F, which is finances. And how have finances impacted your decision to do what you're doing and do what you did before?
Another thing that my life board of directors, and I believe this is actually my chairman of the board that had told me a long time ago, he said, get to the point where you always have 6 months of reserve so that God forbid something happens, you're okay. And at the time when he said that, I'm like, 6 months? Are you crazy? Like, I'm going paycheck to paycheck, right? And what it took was a lot of discipline and balance, right? To be able to save a little bit here and then save more and then exponentially save even more, right? It took a long time. But we were able to create this runway, right? That's what it is, a financial runway, that if something were to happen, we were okay. And I remember our daughter was born, and like 4 days after our daughter was born, there were some things going on in my husband's role that he might not have had a job. And I remember him coming up to me and just like this look of panic. And I looked at him like, who cares? Like, we have a runway. Like, who cares? And he's like, what do you mean? We just had a baby. And I'm like, I don't care. Stay home for a couple weeks. How great would this be? Like, you're never going to have this time with her again. And, we thought about it. Okay, this is why you save for that rainy day. That's kind of my outlook on that.
Do you have aspirations financially for how you'd like to see Abbott Solutions end up?
Oh, yeah. I have what I call a big, hairy, audacious goal. So not only do I want to create wealth for Abbott Solutions in order to create a support system for my family, but I also have a entrepreneur side of me that wants to make a difference in the community. And so I have a plan for my big, hairy, audacious goal that if I can get my company to X amount of money, I want to take the remainder of that money and do things for other people. And I just keep praying about it, and I'm like, God, if you could help me get here, this is how I can do this, and this is what I'll want to do, and just keep praying about it. And if that's what he wants me to do, he's going to make it happen.
How motivating is that BHAG, or that big, hairy, audacious goal, in doing what you're doing now versus going back and being a corporate VP? Because I imagine that paid okay.
It was able to help me create a runway. I think having a corporate role or a role inside another organization, there's a lot of security there. You've got benefits, you've got a salary, like that's comfortable. And you also have more guardrails, which makes it almost easier because you can only make so many decisions in your lane versus having your own company. There's none of that security. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you have to make decisions with very limited information that you're just trying to take a guess at. So it's a much scarier place to be. But I also think not many people will do this. And so you're doing what 99% of people won't do to achieve what 1% of people will.
I like that. Yeah, you should go back to print and make sure that that's in your book.
I know. Oh my gosh, I've been trying to. I'm copywriting so many things, and now I'm trademarking so many different things, and that's a whole pretty pricey penny to do that. I mean, me and my trademark attorney keep going back and forth, and I'm like, he's probably like, this girl is just out of her mind, because I'm like, I need this and I need that, and then every time you need something different, it's a whole nother registration fee, and it's like, everybody wants a piece of the pie.
But you are building that empire. I mean, we haven't talked about it much here yet, but the amount of work that you've done over the last year just on your book is incredible. I haven't been around a lot of authors, but you by far have taken things to a much greater extreme than anyone else has introduced me to, which I think it's a decent segue now to just tell us a little bit more about your book.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I am so excited about that. This is finally done. I never once thought I would be an author. I don't like to write, but yet I did it. And it took me a long time, lots of blood, sweat, and tears, but also I had a great editor. And then I had just that inspiration. I don't know why, but God put in my head from the day I got my diagnosis to start recording everything that was happening. I took pictures, I took videos of how I was feeling in the moment, and then I was able to transcribe those moments and put it into a book. So this book it's called Buried or Planted, a healthcare executive's journey through cancer. And through that, I provide insights into the friction I experienced as a patient. Again, wearing that seasoned healthcare executive hat, but then seeing it through the eyes of patients. And at the end of most chapters, I call out healthcare leaders to say, hey, this wasn't fun, or here was the operational friction I experienced. Here's the waste in the system. Here's the lack of compassion. Where's the humanity? And so I call out all these different areas, and I'm quite proud of this book. There's 3 different audiences. We've got warriors and survivors, loved ones of those survivors and warriors. It's also for healthcare leaders. It's like a process improvement book for them as well. And then also it's a Christian book. I talk about my faith, my positive outlook on things, and I feel that that's one reason why I've gotten through this journey the way that I've have. And it's the power of positive thought. Your brain is so much more powerful than I think we give it credit. It's about changing the perspective and not feeling like you're buried, but being planted for something better. And so on May 29th, my book will be out on Amazon. And here is what it looks like.
That is so exciting. Now, here's the multi-million-dollar question for you. If you could choose one thing for your book to do for the healthcare space, what would it be?
In healthcare, we have a lot of groundwork that has been done on what patient experience should be. And there have been some amazing leaders out there that have created this foundation. And I have learned from some of the greatest. And I am so thankful for that. I feel like this book helps take that foundation to the next level to really look at things through a process improvement lens. I have a black belt in Lean Six Sigma. And what's interesting is I have worked with leaders. One of the leaders I worked with also has a black belt. And so as I was working through the process improvement cycle in a healthcare experience issue we were having, she said, I never once thought about using Lean Six Sigma for healthcare improvement, specifically in that patient experience space. And I kind of laughed and I said, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because you think of a lot of the friction that patients and employees experience in healthcare is because of bad processes. You can't care your way out of a bad process. So my book helps highlight those areas. So it's bringing those insights to light to improve the processes to make a better experience for first the employees that deliver care and then for patients that follow.
Awesome. Awesome. And you said that comes out
May 29th, available on Amazon. Please buy.
And when does the audiobook come out? We've talked about this.
I don't have plans to do an audiobook right now. I really wanted to do it and I wanted it to be my voice. I feel like nobody is going to be able to read my book with my personality and have it convey the way that it should be. Unfortunately, right now for that investment, I'm not ready to do it. I've forked out a lot of money to make this book come to life and I need people to buy it so that we can eventually do that. So the versions that will be out, it's a Kindle version and then also a paperback, or you can get it in a hardback.
So for anyone interested, there's going to be a link both in the description and I'll put it right here in the video as well. So be sure and check out Stephanie's book starting May 29 on Amazon.
So exciting. And this is the first book of many. This first book, I talk about my diagnosis, how it felt getting that and being a mom, going through chemo, surgery, and radiation. And that's where the book stops. It doesn't even talk about everything I'm going through now. So there will be book number 2 that finishes this journey. And then I have ideas for book number 3 and 4. So again, never thought I'd be an author. I don't think I don't like to write. I'm not a good writer, but I have a really great editor that has been able to help me through that process.
Awesome. Stephanie, if people want you for speaking, for consulting, for anything that you do through Abbott Solutions, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I love that you asked that. I would love to help organizations. Not only am I offering keynote speaking, I'm also offering consulting and fractional leadership. So if you need some help, or you know what, maybe you don't have the time for this, you want somebody else to do it, I am your gal. So please, you can call me. You can visit my website at stephaniessabbott.com.
Okay, and that's ABBOTT.
Yep. Stephanie, S as in Sam, Abbott, ABBOTT.com.
Excellent. Well, very cool. One other kind of niche question, because I was actually just introduced to this concept for the first time within the last 2 weeks. What is fractional leadership?
Fractional leadership is lended expertise in a part-time manner. So that's where I can give advice. I'm more hands-on. There's key deliverables, but it's for a limited amount of time. So maybe 25% of my time or 50%. You know, it's not like a full-time role. It's more of a PRN type role.
What would that look like from your level?
I think in the experience type capacities, these types of roles are getting eliminated across the country. And it's not because they're not important. It's just healthcare is struggling, if we're being honest, right? Like prices keep going up, but reimbursements keep going down. And so healthcare is a very interesting place to be in right now. Offering consulting and fractional leadership is a way that organizations can get a high level expertise at a reduced cost of a full-time equivalent. So I think this is also another way that I can help organizations move the needle in a much more economical way for them.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Again, Stephanie S. Abbott, Abbott Consult, or I'm going to keep saying that, Abbott Solutions. It's been such a pleasure having you on. I love everything that you've shared with us today. And again, you made it so easy building in all your own segues. I felt like I was kind of unnecessary for today. Any parting words for the 12 people who will watch this, including all of our
Yeah,
parents?
right. My uncle was already telling me this morning. He's like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear the podcast." Like, and you kind of laugh about, your parents and your uncles, and they're like, "Oh, what kind of technology? Do I watch it on the web?" Like, I kind of made fun of my dad. My dad will go, "I taught you how to use a spoon. You remember that?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I get it." I would just ask that not only do you buy my book, read it, but please leave me a positive review and tell me what your thoughts are. I really not only wanted to survive this experience, but I want to thrive and I want to make a difference. So please let me know how I can do that. And if you need help in any way as far as improving the employee experience, call me.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks so much. I'm going to end the recording there.